Captain Everyman, and this is long overdue. I saw a movie called Get Out, and one of the best movies I've ever seen, directed by Jordan Peele, and he has got to do more movies because this was awesome. But one of the reasons I want to talk about Get Out is because I've seen so many reviews and heard people even talking about it, and they're totally off about what the movie is about. So I'm going to try not to do major spoilers, but obviously I'm going to do some spoilers. I don't like to give away the ending to a movie, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to give you sort of a plot outline of what happens and what is really going on. So if you don't want to hear that, because it'll be decent, deep spoilers here, then now's the time to go. But I'm going to start with Chris. Chris is the main character in the movie. And people seem to be confused about what was actually going on. So I'm going to talk about the timeline of Chris and what goes on. And the timeline from I'm going to call them the cultists that capture him and what they're planning on doing to him, because people don't understand. This movie's about racism. And it's about how white supremacy affects black people's minds. This is really what it's about as an allegory. What it's directly about is a man who's abducted and what a strange kind of sci-fi religious cult tries to do to him. Chris is a black man living in an urban area, and he meets a white woman and falls in love with her. Unbeknownst to him, she has ulterior motives about this relationship. This is not just romance. So after he's really fallen head over heels with her, she invites him to go to meet her parents. So he goes there, and there's sort of the awkward kind of meeting you have with people from other cultures, even though you would think black and white people in this country aren't really radically different cultures, but we perceive that as being true, but of course it's not really. And the racism kind of comes up in a subliminal way, not directly. And her parents kind of overcompensate, we think, because they want to be friendly with him. But what happens is Chris has a smoking problem, and his girlfriend's mother keeps insisting she can help him with that by hypnotizing him. So somehow covertly she kind of lures him into her den. And let me say this about the family. They all have kind of these different specialties that they're good at. The father's actually a brain surgeon. She's a clinical psychologist, I believe she used to be. So she knows how to hypnotize people, supposedly as part of therapy. So what she does is she hypnotizes him, and she causes this kind of effect where he sinks down mentally into what she calls a sunken place, where he has no control over his body and he's just limp in the chair. Because he wakes up in bed and doesn't really remember it that well, and he talks to his girlfriend about it, and she kind of dismisses all that. But that turns out to be a major point in the story. And later on, there's this big party, kind of like a garden party, and everybody wants to meet Chris, interestingly enough. And they all kind of come by, and you get this feeling that they're looking at a car at a car show. They're like punching the tires, they're asking questions about his physical capabilities and his talents. They're really interrogating him, and it seems like more than just a curiosity, and I'll tell you why that is later. He meets this blind art director, which is odd, and he has a deep discussion with him. And it turns out the guy's familiar with Chris, because Chris is an art dealer. He's involved in art. And he talks about how the blind guy at the party talks about how life isn't fair, and here he goes blind to be an art dealer. He can't really do his job anymore. So one of the strange things that happens is Chris meets this guy. He used to live in his neighborhood, and he's this guy who's disappeared. He's like, what is this man doing here? So he walks up and talks to him. The guy acts really strange and like he doesn't know him. His personality's different. And now he's married to an older white lady, which he finds odd, because how would he go from living in his neighborhood to meeting this affluent white woman and be connected to her? Well, a strange thing happens. Chris accidentally flashes him with a flash on his camera. Now he's taking a picture of him because he's suspicious that this guy shouldn't be here and something's wrong, and He wants to confirm who he is and all that. Well, the flash goes off, and the guy starts acting totally different. He looks at Chris, he looks around, looks disoriented, and he looks at Chris, he's all shaking, he says, "Get out, get out!" As if he's warning him he should get out, right? So they brush this off, they say he had a seizure. The mother goes back and sort of hypnotizes him again, and they drug him or whatever, and he comes out, he apologizes, "Oh, I'm sorry I acted that way, blah, blah, blah." So later on, Chris calls his friend on the phone, and he tells him this guy's here, and it's really weird, he's dressed differently and all that. And two other characters that I overlooked are the two black people that work for the family of the girlfriend. And they act really odd and strange. The woman stands in front of the glass, like looking herself over and primping, and the black guy, who's this big, strong-looking guy, he's chopping wood. He says all kinds of weird stuff to him. And Chris has a conversation, a deeper one, like with the girlfriend's father, and he talks about how his father ran against Jesse Owens, and he got beat out by him in the Olympics. His father almost got over, but he didn't. So anyway, Chris gets suspicious, and he's feeling uncomfortable there, and he decides that he wants to go. Sort of fast forward, and his girlfriend acts like she can't find his keys, and her keys to the car. So he knows that something's really strange about this. So one of the things that happens is Chris sees an open door to like a little basement, and in this little room there, he finds this box with pictures, and in this box are pictures of his girlfriend with him, with the woman who works for his family, with the big old guy who works for the family, and with the man he encountered at the party in Flash who acted strange. And what you find out, this is like the epiphany moment in the movie. You realize that his girlfriend has gotten emotionally attached to all these people, apparently romantically attached, and lured them here and started taking them captive. So this is when Chris decides he's out of here, because what he finds, this is really a trophy case. This woman has been connecting with these people and luring them here, and you see her on the computer like searching, looking for her next victim. So Chris gets ready to leave, and the mother hypnotizes him, and he like falls on the floor. And this is when the real purpose of him being here is going to be revealed to him. They strap him to this chair in front of a TV. And what Chris has already told him about is how his mom died, and he's just sitting in front of the TV, and he couldn't do anything. He was frozen because he was a child. He didn't know what to do, and he has all kinds of anxiety about that. And this is the point I think they missed. Because this is all hubris, as I'm about to explain, that they believe they can make this work. But he sits in front of a TV, and this little like program rolls where they explain everything they're about to do to him. So what's been going on is this group is like a religious cult, sort of, involved in actually taking the brains of one person and putting it to another, so that the donor person actually controls the body. So all these black people in the movie, they've really had brain surgery where part of their brain's been removed, and a donor brain from an older white person has been put into them. So unbeknownst to Chris, he's about to have that happen. And they had this little silent auction where they auctioned Chris to the blind guy at the party. So that's why the blind guy at the party was so interested. They're going to take the blind guy's brain out and actually put it into Chris's head. Now what they do is they don't take all of the recipient's brain out, just parts of it. And so what they have to do is hypnotize you to get you to sort of relinquish your control of your body, so that the brain they put into you can take control, the new consciousness. And so they reveal this all on this little videotape. And as it turns out, the woman who works for the family, the black woman, that's really the grandmother. They've taken the grandmother's brain and put it in her head. And the big black guy who works for the family, that's actually the grandfather. They've taken the grandfather's brain and transplanted it into him. So all these people are partially themselves, but hypnotized to sort of be unconscious and not involved, so that the donor brain can dominate and actually rule the body. So when Chris finds this out, apparently it wakes him out of the hypnotic trance. And he goes through and he kills just about everybody there and trying to escape, right? The mother tries to hypnotize him again, but she stops him, or he stops her. And he still doesn't realize what's going on. He still has not put two and two together and realized that the two black people working for the family are really the grandmother and grandfather, because their brains have been transplanted into these people. Now, he gets ready to leave, and the black one works for the family. Like, I think he accidentally hits her, and he tries to grab her and put her in the car as he sees himself as rescuing her. And I think it's the first time you see, I don't know if people notice it, you can see the incisions on her head where the operations taking place. You can see where her skull's been opened and put back together and sewn together like Frankenstein. And so he's trying to drive away thinking he's saving this woman. Suddenly she wakes up from being knocked unconscious from being hit, and she just screams at him and says, "You ruined my house!" And so Chris, for whatever reason, I think maybe he felt like he was the first person they did it to and he didn't make the connection, but obviously not so. And so she makes him get in a wreck because she lunges at him, and he's almost dead in this car wreck, but he gets out of it, and the woman is dead. And what happens is his supposed girlfriend, obviously not, is now coming after him trying to kill him. So this is the first time she reveals it. She looks at the black man that works with the family. She says, "Get him, Grandpa," and the guy runs after him. And but what happens is Chris remembers. He's getting the hell beat out of him because he's in a compromised state from being in the accident. But he gets his phone out. He flashes the guy. And just like the guy at the party, the subconscious person in the sunken place wakes up out of it and takes control. Now, who knows how long this would last, maybe for hours, who knows, but for long enough. And he looks back at the girlfriend, and the girlfriend doesn't make the connection either. And he says, "No, let me do it," because the girl's got a gun trained on Chris. But when she gives the gun to Grandpa/abductee, he turns around and just blows her away. He shoots her. And then he blows his own brains out. Now, here's the thing that I think people are missing here is that he's not committing suicide because of stress or all that. He's doing it because he's killing the guy who has his brain in there. He's killing him with him, and that's why he's doing it. So, like I said, I'm not going to give away the ending. But this whole thing is an allegory of how a lot of black people literally have a white person living in their head. They have the tension and the stress of living in a white world and having to adopt a white mindset to survive, and how they've really submerged themselves. That's the allegory here. And the movie is really about, it's a very beautifully done classic kind of horror film where this family is like a family of serial killers. You got the woman who's a psychologist who hypnotizes people to take control of them. You've got the father who's a brain surgeon who's taking brains from one person and transplanting into another. And you got the daughter who's this predator who goes out and gets the people. It's just all very fascinating. It's a beautiful, like, horrific family. This movie is near a 10. This is a wonderful movie. Even if it does this whole allegory of racism and white supremacy, you can ignore that. If you just look at the movie on the surface for what it is, it's just a beautifully done kind of horror flick. And don't miss out on this. And hey, let me say this. If you like this video and you like this movie, please like this video and please share it, because I really want to discuss this and get into this, because this was such a beautifully done movie and worth savoring, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure a lot of people did too. But what would be more interesting would be discussing it and tell me if you think I'm right or wrong of my assessment of the plot and what happened. I'm not going to give away the total ending like I said I wouldn't, but I took you pretty much to the end. I'll leave that, the last little tidbit, for you to enjoy. But I think even from what I've said, if you just look at the movie and think about the things I've said, it won't spoil it for you, because you'll see it unfolding and how interesting it is.